The now Duchess of Cambridge wore a tiara that I think says an awful lot about the new royals.
Oh honey, when Princess Kate walked out wearing that tiara, Princess Diana's most cherished piece, you could almost hear the gasp ripple through the room. Cameras clicked, eyes widened, but there was one gaze, one trembling, tear-glossed stare. Queen Camilla, she stood like a statue, frozen in place. Her smile, gone. Her heart, clearly breaking. That tiara wasn't just glitter and gold, it was Diana, a symbol of beauty, pain, and legacy. It was as if Diana herself had walked back into the room. Someone even whispered, "It feels like she's here." And Camilla, she looked like a ghost from her own past had just shown up. The lover's knot. Darling, this wasn't any tiara. It had a soul. Commissioned by Queen Mary in 1914, inspired by her grandmother's favorite piece. Pearls and diamonds were chosen with care, each one meant to feel something, not just look pretty. Queen Elizabeth II once passed it on to a young Lady Diana Spencer as a wedding gift. "Welcome to the family," it silently whispered. And Diana, sweet Diana, she wore it with a heart full of dreams.
So, what are we to make of the jewels that were on display at Westminster Abbey last Friday, and in particular those that Kate Middleton wore as she walked down?
At first, the tiara looked like something out of a fairy tale, didn't it? But slowly, it became her battle armor. She wore it everywhere. Royal galas, long journeys, formal dinners, always under the glare of flashing cameras. But no one saw the tears hidden behind those diamonds. That tiara sparkled for the world, yes, but it also held Diana's silent sorrow. One courtier once whispered, it was her shield. Shiny, strong, and lonely. Yet even through heartbreak, she wore it with pride. The world began to notice not just the diamonds, but the woman. That tiara is Diana, they'd say. After her tragic death in 1997, the tiara was tucked away, like a memory too painful to handle. No one dared to wear it. For 20 years, it stayed locked up, untouched, silent. Then, 2015 happened. The velvet box opened. The world gasped. Because Princess Kate, yes, Catherine, stepped out with that legendary tiara gleaming on her head. "You should have seen the reaction," gasps echoed. "Is that Diana's tiara?" people whispered. "It's not just fashion, it's emotion." That night, Kate didn't just walk into a royal event, she walked right into people's hearts. But not everyone smiled. Camilla was watching. And oh, it hit her hard. She had been waiting, playing by the rules, standing by Charles's side all these years, enduring cold glares and silent judgment. She had jewels of her own, sure, glorious ones, historic ones. But the one piece she never touched? That tiara, the lover's knot. When Queen Elizabeth II passed, people thought for sure Camilla would inherit the crown jewels. She was the queen consort now, naturally, right? But no, that sacred heirloom was handed to Kate, just like that. No royal statement, no headlines, just Kate. The whispers started. Did the queen plan this? Did Charles make the call? Whatever happened behind those palace walls, one thing was clear. Camilla was left out. Again. Kate wasn't just given Diana's tiara. She also inherited other stunning treasures, brooches, earrings, and necklaces from Queen Elizabeth and Princess Margaret. These weren't just decorative trinkets, they were stories. And Camilla? Sure, she got some shiny things too, but not the ones that mattered, not the ones that touched hearts. "It's not about the jewelry," someone close to the palace said. "It's about trust." And honestly, they weren't wrong, because Kate wasn't just wearing jewels, she was wearing hope. She was quietly being crowned as the future. The people had already decided. Camilla, though technically queen, still stood in the background, her presence dim compared to Kate's glow. And then came the night, the one that turned whispers into headlines. Kate wore the lover's knot again, a royal event. Cameras flashing, photos spreading like wildfire. People gasped. "She's just like Diana," they said. But it wasn't about looks. It was about feeling. That quiet strength, that calm elegance. She didn't mimic Diana. She channeled her. Camilla was there too, of course, wearing a different tiara, one just as dazzling. But nobody noticed. Kate's tiara spoke. Camilla's? It just sparkled. Side-by-side photos flooded social media. The verdict was unanimous. Kate was the new people's princess. And Camilla, still trying to win a love that never quite arrived. That night wasn't just another dinner. It was a message, a moment, a shift. Kate didn't replace Diana. She honored her. She carried her legacy, gracefully, beautifully. And in the shadows, Camilla realized something that perhaps she always feared. The crown, the real crown, had chosen Kate.
Duchess Kate paying tribute to her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana. Kate wearing Diana's favorite tiara at the royals' biggest bash.
Okay, now listen, darling, because what happened next practically shook the marble floors of Buckingham Palace. That grand event, the one that was supposed to be a shining royal celebration, oh, it became something else entirely. The moment Catherine, glowing, graceful, and glorious, stepped into the room with that tiara twinkling on her head, the entire atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just admiration, it was reverence. The music faded in people's ears. Conversations paused. All eyes were glued to her. The lover's knot had returned, and this time on the head of a woman the world adored. People didn't just see a princess, they saw a story, a legacy, a message, and just a few paces behind her came Queen Camilla. Now she was dressed beautifully, sure, her gown was immaculate and her tiara sparkled under the chandeliers, but something was off. Her entrance didn't make the room hold its breath. Her smile looked forced. Her steps? Not the confident stride of a queen, but something a little slower, more uncertain. She saw it, one guest murmured, and it shook her. Camilla's eyes landed on Kate, or more specifically, on the tiara. And then her gaze turned away quickly, too quickly. You could feel the chill. The mood had changed. Even as music played and champagne glasses clinked, there was a heavy quiet in the air, like everyone knew something had just shifted. That night, which was meant to be a glowing celebration of tradition and unity, suddenly felt like a silent battle of presence. And let's just say the crown didn't shine where it was expected to. Camilla had waited years for this. She had clawed her way through decades of judgment, of whispers, of being the other woman. Now, finally queen consort, this should have been her moment, her reward. But no one was really looking at her. The tiara on Catherine's head was more than a crown. It was a statement. It had belonged to Queen Mary, to Queen Elizabeth, to Diana herself. It had sat on heads of women who'd carried not just crowns, but burdens, pain, power, grace. Diana wore it when she was heartbroken, and still, she smiled. Still, she stood tall. That's what the lover's knot had come to mean. And now, Kate wore it the same way. Not as a decoration, as armor. A source close to the palace once said, when Catherine puts it on, she isn't trying to look regal, she's remembering. She's honoring. And Camilla? She must have known deep down that she would never wear it, that this piece of royal history had skipped her completely. When Queen Elizabeth passed, most assumed Camilla would receive everything, all the jewels, all the power, but not the lover's knot. That went to Kate. Some say it was Elizabeth's decision, quiet, purposeful. Others believe Charles had a hand in it. Either way, Camilla didn't stand a chance. Once a tiara is given, it's final. No trades, no takebacks. In royal tradition, it's yours forever. So when Camilla saw it perched so perfectly on Catherine's head that night, it must have pierced something in her, not just envy, something deeper. It wasn't about diamonds, it was about being chosen. Darling, the internet broke that night. The second photos of Catherine in Diana's lover's knot tiara hit social media. It was over. People weren't just talking, they were screaming. In royal terms, of course. Side-by-side photos of Princess Diana and Catherine popped up on every screen. Fans were crying in the comments. "She's the new people's princess," one person typed with hearts and teardrops. It was like a torch had been passed, not with a formal ceremony, but with one elegant appearance, one iconic tiara, and 1,000 camera flashes. Because just as the headlines started forming, bam! Catherine appeared in another meaningful jewel, one that had belonged to Diana, and suddenly, Camilla was background noise again. It was like watching a royal version of a slow, painful tug of war. But the public had already let go of Camilla's side. Their hands were firmly wrapped around Catherine's. The difference between the two women became blindingly obvious. Catherine didn't need to try. She didn't fight for the spotlight just found her. And poor Camilla, no matter how hard she worked, no matter how well she dressed, no matter how grand her jewels, she remained the reminder of a past people hadn't forgiven. Even the tiaras spoke volumes. Camilla's sparkled with tradition, with history. But Catherine's glimmered with emotion. Behind those palace walls, things were quiet. But oh, don't let that fool you. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind of quiet that comes after something shifts. Something deep. Because while Catherine smiled politely for the cameras and made small talk with foreign dignitaries, Camilla was breaking inside. She may have worn her tiara proudly, but the real crown, that invisible one made of memories and love, that was already sitting on Catherine's head. Camilla tried everything. She wore Queen Elizabeth's pieces, the sparkling graceful tiara, historic, symbolic, full of status. But it didn't touch hearts. People didn't lean in, they didn't feel anything. Not like they did when Catherine wore the lover's knot. And that, right there, was the heartbreak. Because Camilla had the rank, she had the power, but not the emotion, not the legacy. The tiara Catherine wore, once Diana's, full of love, loss, and strength, stirred people's souls. It made them remember. It brought back a kind of magic they hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was belonging. And Camilla? She watched it all unfold, helpless. Sources whispered that she started questioning everything. The traditions, the decisions, the jewels. She allegedly asked why the lover's knot hadn't come to her, why it had been passed to Kate without discussion. She didn't even know it had already been given, one royal insider said. The decision was final before she could even ask. That hit hard, because in royal life, it's not just about what you're given, it's about what you're not given. And for Camilla, that tiara represented something she never got from the public: forgiveness. When Catherine wore it, the people didn't see a woman married to the future king. They saw hope. They saw Diana. They saw a continuation of something that had been brutally cut short. It was symbolic. It was powerful. And Camilla? She knew. She felt it. The very moment Catherine stepped into that room, wearing that tiara like it was made for her, everything changed. That was the moment history took a quiet turn. And no announcement, no title, no official photograph could undo it. The people had made their choice. The palace never made a statement, of course. They never do. But the silence said everything. Catherine didn't have to speak. She didn't post. She didn't flaunt. She just wore that tiara, the lover's knot, like it had been waiting for her all along. And with that quiet grace, she reminded the world of something they hadn't felt in years. Diana's memory wasn't gone. It was alive. Not in speeches, not in headlines. In Catherine, she had become the living echo of a woman the world still mourns and still loves. And the crown she carried? It wasn't made of gold or jewels. It was made of trust. And Camilla? She wore a crown, yes. But it didn't spark emotion. It didn't carry the weight of people's hearts. The moment that tiara touched Catherine's head, something extraordinary happened. The past, all that pain, that beauty, that history, met the future, and everyone felt it. She looks like Diana, they whispered again. She feels like Diana. But here's the thing, Catherine wasn't trying to be Diana. She was just being herself. Calm, composed, radiating warmth and strength, and somehow that made her even more powerful. When Queen Elizabeth quietly chose Catherine for the tiara, it wasn't just a decision about jewelry. It was a passing of the torch. A silent vote of confidence. She is the future, a palace aide reportedly said. Not just because of who she married, but because of who she is. The crown that Camilla wears? That's tradition. That's title. But the one Catherine carries? That's legacy. And legacies, darling, live in people's hearts. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight wearing Diana's most treasured heirloom, Princess Catherine wasn't just another royal figure. She became a symbol, a bridge between history and hope. The face of a monarchy learning how to move forward without forgetting the past. And Camilla? She stood just a few steps behind. Wearing diamonds, yes, but not that tiara. Not that love. The lover's knot didn't just sparkle on Catherine's head, it spoke of memories, of heartbreak, of a queen the public chose, long before any coronation. Because in the end, some crowns are invisible, but their shine, oh, it's unforgettable.